Hey guys, BJTHEBRAVE here, back with some more Warpforge content for you, and today I'm going to be looking at my top 10 6 energy costing cards in the game of Warpforge. If you've been following along on the series so far, you'll know we've already done the top 3, top 4 and top 5 energy, and now we're moving on to 6. So if you've not seen those, go and check them out afterwards. If you like this thing, like and subscribe as always, and let's dive on in. So, when it comes to the 6 drops, guys, we've got a bit of an issue because I was looking at this and I realised we've got a lot of good 6 drops in this game. I would say the 6 drops are the hardest by far when I'm trying to think about what my actual top 10 are. And so I'm doing it a little bit differently today to kind of take you through that thought process. So you can kind of see here that basically I've got it down to like 19 cards basically that I think are all contenders for the top 10. These are all like super good, super powerful, super effective 6 drops. So really picking a top 10 from this lot is really hard. So let me know in the comments what your version would be, because I'm kind of curious. What I tried to base it on is I tried to think about, when I'm rating my top 10, I'm thinking about what impact on a game does the card have? What is the power ceiling? So like, you know, how crazy OP powerful can the card get? How common is the card in decks? And also how consistent is it versus situational? So is it always like really effective and really powerful, or are there some situations where it's less so? So that's kind of like what I'm kind of trying to base it on. So as I say, I've got all of these. I'm going to get rid of that actually. I've got all of these cards vying for the top 10. But in the end, I'm actually going to put in 10th place, I'm going to put the Crimson Hunter. Now, the Crimson Hunter is, I think it's the kind of card that I would actually like to see much more from EG when they're designing cards that are like this, because you know, like as you keep adding new cards and new factions, you kind of got two choices really. Like one is to like power creep and just keep making cards better and the whole game sort of gets crept on, or what you can do is you can kind of create power within a kind of theme. That's like the second option. And actually there's actually I said two things, there's actually three things, and I think the Crimson Hunter falls into the third category, which is it's power that's like a little bit more situational. So what the Crimson Hunter has is like a really solid baseline, right? For 6 energy, it is a flyer with 6 health. That's perfectly reasonable for a flyer. Solid range attack. Yes, it's got no melee attack, but because it's a flyer, remember, most of the time your opponent is forced to trade against the 5 range. The only exception to that is obviously flying melee units like Vet Stormboy, for example. So it's fairly good on the stats, right? Now, obviously, it deals 3 damage when it comes down, so it has an immediate effect on the board. That's also pretty powerful. Like 3 damage at this turn in the game is not bad. But then, obviously, it's got this massive upside, which is deal 6 damage instead. So, I mean, for me, it's like I just think that is awesome, because it kind of acts like a tech card. Like, you've got to think, in the meta, am I coming up against these like flyers where I'm going to get that mega value? And it forces this kind of decision in the middle of the game, like do I hold it off waiting for the flyer, or do I just play it on tempo? So overall, I really love the design of the Crimson Hunter as a card, and I'd like to see more of that kind of like situational power. The kind of floor and ceiling is sometimes another term that is used. Now, in 9th place, I am actually going to go for Lieutenant Calcius. Now, again, I told you the criteria earlier that I was using it. Calcius has made it into tier 1 meta decks over the months, and it's because he has an ability that is able to kind of help their faction finish the game. And when you think about things like Tactical Insight, which enables you to re-trigger this ability, I mean, even if you do that once, that's dealing 6 damage to enemy face, and then you've got a Calcius body on the board. And even if your opponent could get rid of it with their Warlord and trade against the range attack. That's then another 3 damage. So that's like 9 damage minimum that this guy could be doing. So Calcius just plays nicely into like the top end of the curve in an aggro deck. He's got Codex, so he has nice synergy obviously with the faction, and particularly things like Zeal and stuff like that. So overall I think Calcius, even though like on its own in a vacuum, like in other factions this wouldn't be as powerful, it doesn't look that great, that OP, sorry, in a vacuum. When you consider the decks that it goes in, how it helps the decks win games, and how consistent that strategy is, I think it's really hard to ignore Calcius. The other one that I really considered in this spot was Onshi, but I feel like you have to survive a turn with Onshi, but you don't necessarily have to survive a turn with Calcius to get the value. So yeah, I think Calcius is my 9th choice. Now in 8th place, I'm actually going to go with Helldrake. And again, really super difficult this list, guys, because there's so many good 6-drops. But again, the Helldrake just has, it just always feels good, right? Always gets value. I mean, obviously you could roll really low because it is 3 to 6, so you could argue that the downside to this card is the randomness. But you can generally control the board so that when they've only got 2 actual troops down, when you've actually got 2 troops down, you obviously know you're going to hit both of those and the Warlords. So I actually think that the Helldrake strike is just super powerful, and the amount of times it does 5 or even 6 damage to a unit and just killing it, like just that in itself, it's very, very powerful. And not to mention it can really help you close games out as well with the damage that it does to the enemy Warlord. Like if you imagine you've got Drakenum on your Warlord, he plays some units to try and get back in the game, and then you hit him with Helldrake, and then you smack in the face with Drakenum. I mean, that is just such a powerful turn of events. So for me, Helldrake strike is right there. Now, I would say that my number 7 choice is going to be, I'm going to go with a Hexmark Destroyer. I'm going to go with a Hexmark Destroyer. Now, I think that the Hexmark is a somewhat unique card in the game. Like, there's not really another card that does this, but it has this lovely ability with Artifice, and it plays into the control archetype. Now, at one point, it used to say deal 1 damage to all random enemies, which actually, I kind of don't know why they nerfed this card. I think you could stick with that, to be honest, at this stage of the game. It is a card that plays much better once you hit kind of E8 plus, because obviously you want to combine it with actual stratagems. But what it does enable is very, very powerful board clears, essentially. That's what this guy is. It's like an AoE on a stick, and it's a unit that your opponent has to get rid of, and has to get rid of the Remnant. You've got to remember the threat of Remnant off this guy is superb, because you've been standing back up and then start AoEing down again. It's really great, and obviously that applies to things like Tomb World coming back out there as well. So I think the Hexmark Destroyer, super powerful control card, really, really good. Now, in number 6th place, I'm actually gonna go with the Enforcer. Yeah, we're gonna go with the Enforcer. So the Enforcer did get a little bit of a nerf in that it went down from 5 to 4 melee attack. But this card is just always consistently good. That's why it made my list. Just thought you're never not happy to see this card. Like, it can come down and have an immediate effect on the game with the Vanguard that it brings down if you've got a little bit more energy. Obviously, it can play two other Vanguards as well. And on top of that, it's got that kind of like Makari-esque benefit of buffing the units that are next to it, which is incredibly handy for trading and sometimes for even finishing the game, right? You can make your Warlord have 3 range attack, for example. So I think the Enforcer Battlesuit is just a super consistent, high-powered unit. It adds a real defensive safety element to the deck, and without this card, Tau would be dramatically reduced. I think this card is like the card, the crisis, the suit basically, particularly like in that mid game. So yeah, Enforcer Battle Suit is super solid. Now in 5th place, I'm actually gonna go with Squig Buggy. When they changed this card and gave it flank and added the ability to basically deploy a bomb squig, I just thought this card was going to be the most broken card in the game. I wouldn't say it's quite gone as far as becoming the most broken card in the game, but it has, ever since that change, been consistently strong. And you often see 2 of these in just about every Orc deck, to be honest. It's the combination of having a high damage flanker at 6. I think being able to do 6 damage as a 6 energy flanker is like the bar, where the bar's set. I think the units that have less than that struggle a little bit. Things like the Penitent Engine and things like the Space Marine flanker. I think the difference between 5 and 6 is quite a big deal at this point in the game. It's something I've learned. And the Squig Buggy has that. And then in addition, it drops this Bomb Squig that gives you like this whole AoE element to the board. And when I say AoE, that damages the opponent face as well. So it can be really good in like an aggro deck because it keeps putting pressure on. But it's also really good in a control deck. So all round, just a really solid unit. And the really downside is is unstable. It often ends up blowing up itself, or the Bomb Squig blows it up, or something like that. But you know, these days in Orc decks where you've got armor and things like that, that's not too catastrophic, and you've already done the damage anyway. So this is a super powerful card. Probably want 2 of them in every single Orc deck. Now in 4th place, I am going to go with the Hive Crown. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Hive Crown. This card is awesome in the Tyranid faction, right? Like, the stats are superb because you are talking about a flyer that has high melee attack, decent range attack, and really good health for 6. 7 health on a flyer is really good for 6e. Not to mention, it has again, it's not particularly like sexy, but it's just a really consistent, effective rally effect that is deal 3 damage on board. If you're playing Swarmlord, you know, between the Swarmlord and this rally damage, that means you can do 6 damage to a unit. So it's a really powerful swing card, and it's also fantastic with the disruption pool. If you play this on E4 with a disruption pool, you're so far ahead, it's ridiculous. So I do just find that Hive Crones are definitely all reliable kind of 6e drop in the Tyranids. So yeah, very, very happy with this. Now we're down to the top 3, and as you can see, there's an awful lot of cards. So what I'm going to kind of do is just kind of like eliminate some of these. I think On-Shi doesn't make my list, and the reason is, when I took you through the criteria earlier, this card is super powerful, but it's a very good 6 drop, and it's just its stats alone, especially with the shield. However, you know, it can be like pinged, the shield can be pinged, and then it can be taken out against the kind of just 4 range attack, and then it's done nothing. So it's not guaranteed that it's going to kind of have this excellent value that it potentially can, with having the talent and getting extra cards off Serene Unifier, or making your other troops better. Like, these are brilliant abilities that absolutely deserve a place in the top 10. Like, you know, if it sticks around, it's better than Calcis, it's better than the Crimson Hunter. But to me, it's like, but their effects are guaranteed. This one is not, and that's why ultimately it doesn't make my top 10. And it's a similar thing with the Spirit Seer. The Spirit Seer is a bit different because, like, potentially you could play this where, you know, you do have a Spirit Stone there ready to be collected, and you drop this guy and collect it, and therefore it's got good value. This card has excellent stats, but particularly if there's nothing on the board, you would need to play it for tempo, and you're just dropping good stats. It doesn't necessarily have any other board effect. And I think when you're comparing it with these peers, it's a superb card, but it doesn't quite get in the top 10. And it's a similar thing with the Screamer Killer. Of course, Scream Killer is really well statted, very powerful, but it's another one of the cards that relies on sticking. Yes, you could pay an extra 1 to give it a flank, but then we could get into arguments like that with other units as well. So I think on its own, I think it's a really solid card, but it probably doesn't quite cut it in this list. Similar with Rapacious Hunger, which is a bit of a shame because it's an AoE card, and this obviously recently got buffed to deal 3 damage, so I do think that this is a really, really great AoE now, but I don't think it quite hangs with this list. And I think the other thing is as well, when I thought about the Necron ones, I'm actually going to not push the Plasmancer forward. I love the 7 health for 6. 4/4 is like good that it's even stats, it can't be tricked, but it's not high, right, at 6e. Like 4 is, say, very, very average, maybe even slightly below. So it's good that they're even, but it's not particularly high damage dealer. However, I do think dealing 3 damage is superb. You do need it to be quite late game though, and you need to be getting like a couple of stratagems along with it to get that value. It's a really good card, it's a really good 6-drop. I don't think it's quite as good as the Hex, so I'm gonna cut that from my thinking. And similar with the Zephyrin, I mean the Zephyrin is a great, it's a great flanker. As I said, it's got that magic 6 that we talked about earlier, which you're looking for with a flanker. It's very good. It's the best the Sisters have got, but it's not on the same level as, I don't think, the Squig Buggy or the Veteran Stormboy. So for that, it's not going to make my list. Similar with Stern, I think Stern is a really nice proactive 6-drop in the Sisters. Camouflage is a big deal because unlike a lot of these cards, it means that it can't actually be taken out or even contribute to being taken out by things like point blank shot and smaller stratagems. Camouflage is a big deal, but it is a tempo 6-drop. Like you need to have been playing on tempo and on curve, because if you're behind and you drop this, it's not good because the board can then easily trade with it. So I just don't think, and it's not an immediate effect beyond the camouflage, so it doesn't quite make this list. Now that leaves us with these 5 to place the top 3. I'm actually going to go with, in 3rd place from this lot, and it's really tough because these are all great cards, but I'm actually going to go with the Venom Crawler. The Venom Crawler obviously once upon a time didn't have the armor, and it was still a good card, but now it's got the armor. It's just a really, really insane, just a super solid card. Look at those stats, guys. 6/6, can't be cheated for 6 health, but with the armor, and then making all of your stratagems cost 1 less. Of course, we have things like Abaddon's Chosen that can now cost 0. Abaddon's Warlord power can only cost 1. You can get cheaper Helldrake strikes, cheaper Spawndoms. There's just so much good synergy with the Venom Crawler. It really is a terrifying card to play against, right, when you're playing against the Black Legion. And as far as I'm concerned, very, very worthy of the top 3 slot. So that is the Venom Crawler. Now, in 2nd place, I am going to go with the Veteran Stormboy. Now, anyone following my channel knows I've bang on about this guy. Like, this card is ridiculous. It is easily the best flanker in the game, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, having the only one that can compete, I think, for the best flank in the game is potentially the Gargoyle, just because of the insane flexibility that Gargoyle has. But this guy, look at this, guys. He's cost 6 and he's got 6 health as a flyer with a massive 6 melee attack, making him the absolute worst nightmare on earth for enemy flyers. Not only that, he's got decent range attack, so he's got the 4 if he actually needs to trade that way. And then in addition to just having the most, I mean, if he just was like that, he'd be better than the Zephyrin. But then he's got this ability that if you play Stormboys, they get flank. I mean, you truly can't get any more power out of a card without it being broken, and this card is right up there at the top of what you might call S tier. So yep, Veteran Stormboy deservingly in 2nd place. And the only one that I think can top that is, it's not Draconum. And Draconum is a very, very solid card, but it is a little bit situational. There can be turns where it's wrong to play it. You really need to have had a deck built around it and a good game plan. It's a very strong card, but I don't think we're quite beating off Venom Crawler and Vet Stormboy. So it's really down to the Dark Apostle and the Broodlord. And for me, I actually think the Venom Crawler is a slightly better card than Dark Apostle. Dark Apostle is super powerful, but it relies on usually playing it later than 6 and having extra dark packs to play, and so it didn't quite make my list. And so therefore, in first place, I have got the old faithful Broodlord. Now, the Broodlord is just an absolute trademark when it comes to the Tyranids. I mean, since I've been playing this game, most of the win cons in Tyranids situate around the Broodlord. Like, you drop this guy on 6, you can even drop him on 4 with a disruption pool. That's got to be factored in when you're thinking about this list. The Broodlord is a stealth unit, and with 6 health, you've got no way of getting rid of it unless you're playing something like No Mucking About, Divine Intervention to do so. And that's about it. There's really nothing else that can take the Broodlord out when it's in stealth mode. And then obviously it's got the ability to synapse, because of course it's a synapse creature, but it only goes and applies those effects twice, which is ridiculous. Like putting the hardened what's it called? Hardened armor, that's what I was going to say. Putting that on the Broodlord, and of course the big one is the Ravenous Hunter, right? So being able to, what we used to be able to do is get the +1 and double that because of this synapse. Change the Ravenous Hunter because of this combo, but it's just a phenomenal card. Just about every stratagem works really, really well with the Broodlord, and getting synapse when you've got multiple units in play with this and getting that triggering twice is just disgusting value. So the Broodlord is, I think, the best 6-drop in the game. Let me know what your top 10 would look like. As I said, it's very difficult, this list, because there's some really great 6-drops. What do you agree with? What don't you agree with? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe and all that jazz, and I'll see you guys in the next one.